This is growth and development of the preschooler. So we expect kids this age to grow 2.5 to 3 inches a year and gain 4 to 5 pounds a year. They've really slowed down on growth at this stage. They lose a lot of their baby fat and start to put on more muscle. Their face elongates, which is good for those kids who have had lots of ear infections. Many kids outgrow ear infections at this age. If they don't, they're not likely to outgrow getting them till they're more like 6 or 7, where the face elongates further and that eustachian tube finally angles downward. So with growth, we are concerned that they stay on the same growth curve. So if they're on the 90th and they drop to the 50th, we're worried. If they're on the 50th and they stay right around there, then we're happy. So organs all continue to mature. Myelination of the spinal cord gives them that better sphincter control. So potty training really finally is pretty well completed at this stage. Small intestines growing, respiratory structures are growing. As I said, those eustachian tubes still stay pretty straight. So if they don't outgrow ear infections at this stage, they won't for several more years. Heart's decreasing slightly, blood pressure's increasing slightly. Murmurs are common at this age to hear a functional, or the other name for it is an innocent murmur. A murmur is just blood splashing another blood, and when you're only listening through this very thin chest wall, you often will hear that, and it's not a problem. Functional or innocent means there's nothing wrong, but you can hear it. All their baby teeth are in, those 20 deciduous teeth. Urethra remains short, particularly in females, and so urinary tract infections are still a high risk, and the bones are increasing in length, muscles are strengthening and maturing. So developmentally, let's talk about our theorists. Erikson calls this initiative versus guilt, and he makes this 3 to 6 years of age. So if you think of it as preschool and kindergarten, Piaget never quite matches Erikson's with his age. He calls this the preoperational stage, but then he divides it into 2 substages of 2 to 4. So that early preschool, and then 4 to 7, so kind of kindergarten, first grade level. Kohlberg, for moral development, calls this preconventional morality, and he says that's developing between 2 and 7. Freud calls it the phallic stage, 3 to 7. So everybody's ages are a little different right in here. So let's talk about Erikson's. Initiative versus guilt. This is where kids start to step away and do things on their own for a short period of time. They do want to know the parent is there. They need that reassurance that they can come running back and the parent will be there. So this is where they want to go play outside, but every few minutes they run back in to make sure the parent is still there. They often can feel guilt or anxiety or fear that they want to do things they know they're not supposed to. So they know what the family's expectations are now, and they may start having feelings, desires that they know their parents don't approve of, and that can lead to that guilt or anxiety. They're starting to develop a conscience, the beginnings of what Freud calls superego. So they feel bad when they hurt someone, and this is new, right? They're continue to learn right from wrong, but it's still just based on consequences. So if they're praised for it, it's right. If they're scolded for it, it's wrong. And that's very confusing for kids who then go to a different household and the rules are different, because something is right because you got praised for it, not because, there's something inherently right or wrong in it. And how can that be different in different settings? So moving on to Piaget, this is his preoperational stage, but we're going to start with that 2 to 4-year-old where it's the preconceptual thought. So these kids are still egocentric. They can only see things from one point of view. You can't say, consider this, look at it this way. They can't do it. They learn by observing and imitating. They have magical thinking, and to me this is one of the most fun things about preschoolers, is they don't really have a good sense of what's pretend and what's real. And so when they're in their princess nightgown in the hospital and you go in and say, "Are you Princess whatever, Ariel?" They nod and they say yes, because maybe they are. So that reality and fantasy are very mixed, but it also means that if they think something, it can happen. And this can cause some guilt. So if they were mad at the baby and the baby goes to the hospital, now they feel like it's their fault. Or they got angry at the parent and the parent got hurt, they can feel like it's their fault because they don't realize that thinking it doesn't cause it. Imaginary friends are common at this age. Animism, so they attribute human emotions and feelings to inanimate objects, right? Their dolly doesn't like eating spinach because they don't like eating spinach. Or their pet, they attribute human emotions to everything. Language is continuing to develop. They have a little bit of an understanding of counting and of time, but it's not very good. So you can't tell them, you can have 10, because then they might just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They know the numbers. They usually are starting to understand like 1, 2, 3, but not beyond that. Time, again, put it into something that they understand. At the end of your TV show or a very long movie, at the end of a very long movie, mom's going to come back, because they have a little bit of a sense of that, but it's not good. They're able to make simple classifications, and this can be quite funny. This is where you may have a puppy at home, and then you go on a drive in the country, and they look out at a field of horses and say, "Oh, so many big puppies," right? Because they're furry animals. All furry animals are puppies. So they can start doing classification, but it starts out simply, and it's really sweet when they do things like that. Those are the things we write down and remember. And as I said, reality and fantasy are very interblended. As they get a little older, and Piaget calls this 4 to 7, they now move on. They're still pre-operational, but they move on to intuitive thought. And in this, they can count now, right? So this is a kid like kindergarten, first grade. So they can count and understand what the quantity means. They know all their colors. They probably can't read a clock. Maybe some of them can, many of them can't, but they have a much better understanding of time, that a minute is short, an hour is long. They can classify much better than before. This is where you can give, pictures and say, which one is different? And they'll say, these are all things I eat, and this one is an animal. So that classifying is much better. Transductive reasoning, this goes from specific to specific. So they can't really find a general principle. So maybe if they have a 2-story house and the bedrooms are upstairs, they come to your house and you have stairs, and they say, whose bedrooms are upstairs? And you say, no, our bedrooms are downstairs. They would be so confused because they're taking the specific to the specific and not making general understandings that houses are built and you can do things differently. So another example that I think is from our book or an older book is the train barks, or a dog barks when the train rides by, and so the next time the train goes by they say, where's the dog? Because the two in their mind have always gone together, and so they're trying to figure this out. They love talking at this age. They love to hear themselves talk. They love to ask questions. They love new words. They'll often use big words that they heard somewhere. They might use it right. In fact, they often do because they're paying so much attention. But it doesn't mean that they understand the words. They might be using a word they don't really know what it means, but they just like trying out those new words. They are starting to understand that different people do things differently. And they can tolerate those differences, but they really don't understand it. They don't know why some families don't have Christmas trees, but they're not going to say that's wrong. They have very much internalized their cultural norms at this point, such as things like Christmas trees. They want that because that's what we do. We are the family that celebrates Christmas, or whatever it might be. They're very curious at this age, and parents get tired of that. Why, what, how? Mostly why? At this age, they don't really understand death is permanent, and that can be hard if they've lost a sibling. A sibling who's still alive at this age is very likely, after a certain amount of time, to say, can we go and get brother again? I'm ready for him to come home now. So they don't understand the permanence of death. Preconventional morality, so they do have a basic level of moral judgment, but it's still based on that punishment and obedience. So wrong should be punished, obedience should be praised, and it's wrong if you get punished, it's right if you get praised. So they're still pretty egocentric, act to satisfy their own needs. They're not really that concerned about others yet, although that's glimmers of that are starting. And as I said, it's very concrete. They want things that are right to get rewarded, things that are wrong to get punished, and they assume that that reward or that punishment reinforces that this is right or wrong. And so if they do something they know was wrong, hitting or biting, they expect to be punished and feel like they should be. If in some families they let them do things that are not necessarily socially acceptable outside of that family, they are not going to realize it's not okay because they weren't punished for it, so they don't associate it as bad or unacceptable. Freud calls this the phallic stage because pleasure comes from the genitalia. Masturbation is common during this age. They are starting to develop that superego, which is a conscience, to understand that when I do that, it hurts other people, and that makes them sad, and I shouldn't. Freud also notes that this stage, they usually make a connection with the opposite sex parent, and then that will change as they get a little older. So motor skill development, the things we're looking for: a 3-year-old, they should be climbing, pedaling a trike, going upstairs, alternating their feet. They can bend over without falling. Fine motor, undressing themselves, copy a circle, build a tower with a lot of blocks now, up to 9. Screws, lids, things like that they can do. 4 years old, they should be able to throw over hand, kick a ball, catch a ball, bounce to them, stand on one foot for 5 seconds, hop on one foot, and I alternate going up steps. Using scissors at this age, they should be able to do. They should be able to copy some letters, capital letters, draw circles and squares, draw a person with 2 parts. 5 years old, they should be able to stand on one foot for 10 seconds, swing and climb well. Many can skip or do somersaults now. That fine motor, they should be able to dress and undress themselves. It may not be perfect. The buttons may be askew, but they can do it. Print some of their letters, feed themselves using utensils, draw a person with more body parts now, and they can learn to tie shoes at this age. And here's just some pictures of 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and 5-year-old differences of drawing people.